at a time when some 16,000 Palestinians have been killed in the last 2 months, two-thirds of whom are women and children, and tens of thousands more have been injured. At a time when 1.8 million people, Palestinians, have been displaced from their homes and are struggling every day, have been thrown out of their homes. They don't know where they're going. They are struggling to get food and water and medical supplies and fuel just to survive. And I want you to think about what's going on with the children, a lot of children in that country. What is going on psychically, them looking up in the sky, is a bomb going to fall? Where am I spending the night? How do I get food? That's what's going on there right now. And Madam President, at a time when over 250 people have been killed in the West Bank, I'm not talking about Gaza, I'm talking about the West Bank, since October 7th, and more than 1,000 Palestinians have been driven off of their land in the West Bank. No, in the midst of all of that, I do not believe we should be appropriating over $10 billion for the right-wing extremist Netanyahu government to continue its current military approach. What the Netanyahu government is doing is immoral, it is in violation of international law, and the United States should not be complicit in those actions. Madam President, we are all clear that Hamas, a corrupt terrorist organization, began this war with their barbaric attack against Israel on October 7th. Given that reality, Israel has a right to defend itself, but it does not have, in my view, the right to wage all-out war against innocent men, women, and children, Palestinians, who had nothing to do with the Hamas attack. Therefore, I believe it is appropriate for us to support defense systems that will protect Israeli citizens from incoming missile and rocket attacks. But I believe that it would be irresponsible for us to provide an additional $10.1 billion in unconditional military aid that will allow the Netanyahu government to continue its current offensive military approach. That approach has included indiscriminate bombing that has killed, as I mentioned before, 16,000 people, most of whom are civilians. And I want to make this point. All of us, many of us, I hope most of us, understand that what is going on in the Ukraine is horrendous. Putin, almost 2 years ago, attacked Ukraine. The result is massive destruction. Hundreds of thousands of young Russian soldiers are dead. Some 30,000 Ukrainian soldiers are dead. It is a disaster. But interestingly enough, according to the United Nations, about 10,000 civilians have been killed since Russia's unprovoked invasion in February 2022. 10,000 civilians killed in Ukraine in a terrible war in almost 2 years. 15,000 Palestinians killed in the Gaza area in 2 months. Israel's indiscriminate approach is, in my view, offensive to most Americans. It is in violation of U.S. and international law, and it undermines the prospects for lasting peace and security. Israel must dramatically change its approach to minimize civilian harm and lay out a wider political process that can secure lasting peace. And that must include a guarantee that displaced Palestinians will have the absolute right to return to their homes as Gaza rebuilds. It will include no long-term occupation or blockade of Gaza, an end to the killings of Palestinians in the West Bank, and a freeze on new settlements there, and perhaps most importantly, a commitment to broad peace talks to advance a new two-state solution in the wake of this war. Madam President, the Biden administration has appropriately, and I applaud them for this, been trying to get the Israelis to be more targeted in their approach. But there is little evidence that they have succeeded. Just today, airstrikes, Israeli airstrikes, hit 2 UN schools housing displaced people. Today, 2 UN schools housing displaced Palestinians. More than 900 Palestinians have been killed since Friday. Israeli evacuation orders are delivered with little notice to people with no electricity and limited communication services, most of whom have already been displaced, have already been traumatized, and already lack basic necessities. And then, even then, the bombing continues. So, Madam President, as we proceed on this supplemental bill, which has some very, very important issues, count me in 100% for the humanitarian that we support, that we need, not only in Gaza, but all over this world. Count me in for that. Count me in for serious discussions about how we improve border security. Count me in to help the people of Ukraine withstand Putin's terrible invasion. But do not count me in to give another $10 billion to a right-wing extremist government in Israel, by the way, whose prime minister now, I guess their trial for corruption is continuing. Don't count me in to support that $10 billion. And with that, I would yield the floor and note the absence of a quorum.